Jerusalem was destroyed on the 9th of Av, 70 AD. I believe it was the 9th of Av because the temple was destroyed, yeah. Okay? Now, this led me directly to the crucifixion. And I'm going to show you these timelines here in a minute. In the past, I've told you that God's timeline has to do with switching who is on the earth at what time. God was on the earth in the Old Testament. We have Jesus who came down here and did a quick switcheroo and brought us the Holy Spirit for the New Testament, and then Jesus himself will be here for the millennial reign. Okay? Right here at this switcheroo is where God would have switched time, because that's where the Holy Spirit fell on the day of Pentecost, was at the resurrection. What this means is, because it's 4,000 years, this has to be a Jubilee year. So, if we look at Jubilee years surrounding the death and crucifixion and resurrection and day of Pentecost, we're going to have to look at years where Jesus possibly died that would make 70 AD a Shmita. Okay? We're also going to have to consider the death of King Herod. And we're also going to have to consider the second coming when looking at this. I hope y'all understand where I'm coming from here. That 70 AD had to be a Shmita, because this is a Jubilee. The resurrection is a Jubilee year. Okay? Guys, I used to think and believe that Jesus possibly died somewhere around 28 AD, and then I switched over and started thinking it would have to be 32 AD. But when I went back and did these Jubilees and Shmitas, I found out that in fact 32 AD is not going to work. Okay? There's only two possibilities. In order for 70 AD to be a Shmita year, there's only two possibilities. We have Jesus dying in 28 AD or 35 AD. Given the age of Jesus when he died on the cross and the age of Adam when he sinned, given the death of King Herod, the timing of that issue, 35 AD was kind of eliminated for me based on these parameters, okay? So what I did was, I started with the Jubilee of 28 to 29 AD at the cross. Now, this is God's Shmita year at 4,000 years from the fall of Adam, okay? Excuse me. And I'll show you that in a minute too. But we start with the cross. The Jubilee year of 28 to 29 AD, if we write out all the Shmitas, gives us a temple destruction at 70 AD in a Shmita year. Alright? So I kept writing those out. Flip over here. And we keep going on a 50-year count. And we come to 1928-29. The Great Depression is included in there. Alright, so we come on over here to 1928-1929. Being a Jubilee year, and we start counting forward again, and where do we land? 1949-50. What did we have in those years? Blood moons. He's wondered why God waited until 1 to 2 years after Israel declared its independence in 48 to give us those blood moons, that tetrad. It was so odd to me. Why would he do that? And now I realize it was a sign to Israel when they came back into their land in 1948. He gave the blood moon tetrad as a reminder. You better keep my Shmitas. This is a Shmita year. He's like, you better keep my Shmitas. All right, we come on down here. It lands a Jubilee year in 78, 79. We come on over here, and we're going to start counting backwards. All right, so we're going opposite now. So the 7th year becomes a Shmita year if we're going backwards. And then we come down to 1878, 79. We keep going backwards, 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 all the way down to 1620, 1621 was a Shmita year. That's when the Pilgrims landed in America. Okay? Now, we come back over here to 1978, 79, the Jubilee year, and we go forward. We keep writing out these Shmita years. And look what we come to. 2013, 2014. We had that blood moon tetrad in 1415. Okay? It looks to me like God actually took 2 Shmita years and split them and did the blood moon tetrad on half one year and half the other as a reminder. Keep my Shmitas. Look here. Shmita year. 2020, 2021 with a blood moon. Come on down here, and we have a Jubilee year 2028, 2029. I was like, okay, let's take this backwards and see what we get. We start with the Jubilee year 28, 29. We start going backwards. Remember, the Shmita years are reversed when you go backwards, okay? Remember, there's no year 0. So we count backwards. The first year of that Jubilee cycle would have been 22 to 21 BC, okay? So we keep going backwards on the Jubilee years. 516 BC was the completion of the temple. This was a Jubilee year, okay? Now, we keep counting backwards, these Shmita years, and look where it lands. 588 to 587 BC. This was the siege of Jerusalem, okay? This is when Jerusalem was taken. The temple was destroyed either 588 to 587 or 587 to 586, somewhere in there. They're not real sure, but the siege of Jerusalem was this year, okay? And then I just kept going all the way back. So, this takes you back to the fall of Adam, 3973, 3972 BC. So then let's look at the creation timeline here. The creation timeline would go from 4005 to 4004 BC, putting the birth of Jesus at 5 to 4 BC. This would put 1996-97 as a Jubilee year, and 2996-2997 as the last year of the millennial reign, okay? But if we look at the fall of Adam timeline from 3973, we go forward, okay? That puts the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus at 2829 AD. So he would have been born around this time and died here, okay? That is a difference of 32 years. So now let's look at Jesus. You have to be 30 years old to be a priest unto God, all right? So he would have turned 30 years old on Tabernacles. The following Pentecost, he was baptized, or the Feast of Weeks. He was baptized the same time that the disciples got their gifts in the Spirit. You know, I showed you those 4 separate 50 days with the bridal price, the covenant, the gifts, and the wedding. Okay, so this would have been the third 50 days. He got baptized in the Holy Spirit. So the following tabernacles after this, he would have turned 31. All right, around Hanukkah of that year, he would have started his ministry. According to Daniel 9, the Messiah was cut off, okay, after the 62 weeks, but he had already mentioned the 7 weeks. So there's 69 weeks implied. Messiah was cut off, all right? So if you put it all together, if there's a weekly Sabbath that fell in the week of that Hanukkah, you would have to count that as 2 weeks. You go forward from Hanukkah 69 weeks. It's exactly Passover 28 AD. Okay? Now, let's look at the creation timeline. From 5 to 4 BC, Jesus was born in the Jubilee year. I came all the way up to 1896 and went forward because I wanted to see what would happen. We have a Shmita year, 1917, 1918, dealing with Israel. We come down here, we got another Shmita year, 45, 46, dealing with World War II. And we come on down here, and there's another Shmita year, 67, 68. See, all this stuff's starting to make sense to me now. Alright? Then we have, over here, we have another Shmita year, 2017, 2018. Remember the Revelation 12 sign? It happened in a Shmita year. Okay? Now we come over here. If we start Israel at 1918, they started coming into the land in 1917, but the Muslims expelled them. They weren't actually allowed to come back until 1918. So I did the Jubilee year from 1918 to 1919. Brings me to a Shmita year of World War II. It brings me to a Shmita year of 67, 68, where we had the Blood Moon Tetrad. Once again, God's reminding them of the Shmita year. Okay, we come down here. There's another Shmita, 2017, 2018. See how these are lining up together? This is when Trump announced that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. Then we come down here. It gives us another Shmita year, 2025, 2026. Let's look at 1947-48, all right? Israel was already in the land. So when they announced their independence, we would have to count the year that they announced it in because of the UN General Assembly, November 29th of 1947, okay? So if we count that and go forward, we end up with another Shmita, 2025, 2026, the same thing as the 1967 timeline. Okay, now, let's look at America's timeline and see what we can find. Now, I had to do a lot of playing around on this one and a lot of guesswork on this one. Hold on for a second, y'all. So like I said, I spent weeks messing around with this, trying to see what I could find and what I could figure out. The best that I could come up with for America, as far as Jubilees and Shmita years, was a Jubilee year of 1880 to 1881. This takes you all the way back to a Shmita year of 1772 when the 13 colonies crashed. Okay? Now, if we go forward on these Shmita years, we end up at 1915-16. The World War I started in 1914, but America was attacked and brought into the war in 1915. Then, of course, we had the Great Depression on a Shmita year. All right. If we go forward in America with a Jubilee year of 1930 to 31, I forgot to show y'all this. That brings us to a Jubilee year of 30-31. So we have these Shmitas down here. All right, so you have 44 and 45 down here as a Shmita year. I need to mark that. Okay, that's better. So we have 44 and 45 as a Shmita year. Come on over here. We got to flip the page. Now, to finish out this Jubilee cycle, we come exactly to 72-73, which was Roe v. Wade and our first loss in the Vietnam War. Now, that brings us to 1979-1980 as a Shmita year, 80-81 as a Jubilee year with that great stock market crash. Okay? If we keep going, that brings us to a Shmita year of 01-02, the World Trade Center, 08-09, stock market crash, 15-16. Oops, I forgot to put the blood moon there. Hold on. That's better. So by splitting this blood moon tetrad in 1415 between two Shmita years, he's sending a message to both Israel and America about the Shmita years. We go forward to 2022, 2023, all the way to 2029, 2030.